welcome to Between the Covers Summer Series, where we shine our spotlight on South Florida authors. I'm Anne Bocock, and joining me is conservationist, writer, and award-winning photographer Kirsten Hines. Her latest book is Wild Florida, an Animal Odyssey. It is a beautiful look at the array of species that call Florida home. It's told with insight and personal stories. And Kirsten, thank you so much for being here and for writing this book.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for reading it. I appreciate it.
Can you give us, I guess, the Cliff Notes version of your journey, starting as wildlife biologist, gravitating to sharing your work through stories and photographs?
Yeah, I mean, I started off as a biologist. I went to graduate school to be a scientist, and then somewhere along the line, I just realized it wasn't exactly right. You know, I loved it, but it didn't feel exactly right. And I realized that what I wanted to do was speak to larger audiences. And so I had always been a writer. And after graduate school, when I was trying to figure out, well, what's next, my friends gave me my first ever camera. And I went traveling around the world and ended up traveling for 3 years and discovering I loved photography and was thinking about, well, how can I use these things that I love together? And the culmination ended up being, okay, well, I could be a storyteller. I can use my writing and my photography and concentrate on the things that I care about, which is nature. And so this book in particular came about, actually, first of all, because of the photography. I had already done a book with the University of Florida Press on how to garden for wildlife in South Florida. And I was at a conference and they saw me there with my book and they were like, you know, we love your photography. We'd like to do another book. And I was like, yeah, sure. And they were like, you know, give us some idea, pitch us an idea, basically. And so I went off and I looked and I was surprised to realize there wasn't a comprehensive book on Florida's wildlife and its natural history that covered the entire state and had really good photography associated with it. And so I decided that was going to be what I would do.
Good for you. This book, Wild Florida, it really illuminates how diverse our state is. How many species did you include in this book?
Oh, wow.
I know it's about 100.
Yeah, there's about 100 species that have individual animal essays, and then I also have more large thematic essays like what does it mean to be a native species or a non-native species, or where do our tropical species come from, for
and
example.
About 200 photos as well.
Yeah.
And I know you can't judge a book by its cover, but you really can on this book when you look at that cover. It is the most adorable gray fox, who looks like he's looking right at you. You are a great photographer.
Well, he was looking right at me, actually. The irony is he was in the historic Miami cemetery, and I was there to take pictures of a whippoorwill, a bird that had just been released. I knew in the area, and I needed it for a different book project on, you know, identifying birds of Florida. And so I was there looking for that bird, and I see this tail hanging down. I'm like, what on earth is that? And I had to work my way around the tree until I could finally see who it was. And this fox was looking down at me like, what are you doing here? And I was kind of like, what are you doing here? It's in the middle of the city. It's in the middle of the day, actually. I mean, it was pretty amazing. And there was nowhere for him to go. He was way up in an oak tree. So he posed. Let me, yeah. What else is he going to do? He's like, okay, I'll just sit here.
Is there a species now or a habitat that you feel is overlooked but urgently needs attention?
I mean, I think the beauty of Florida is we have so many truly unique habitats, right? So for down here, we have the rocklands, pine rocklands that extend from northern Dade County all the way down into the Keys. And that's an extremely unique and rare habitat that's been mostly built up because it's where the pinelands are, it's the highland, it's where everybody wants to develop. But in Central Florida, we have our scrub habitat that occurs nowhere else in the world. And then even up north, there's really unique habitats as well in our ravines and cliffs up in the Panhandle area. And so each of these are really unique, and each of them are facing their own set of threats. And, you know, let's face it, there's no other state like Florida. We are very different. And part of what I discovered on this journey was how many species we have of plants and animals, in addition to those habitats that occur nowhere else in the world. And so, in fact, Florida leads in the state, in all of the United States, as being one of the top states for having species that occur nowhere else.
You have job security. There's no question. What can we do, people who are not conservationists and not scientists, to help? And I say this, I'll look at one thing, the encroaching that we're doing on certain spaces, perhaps like the Gulf Coast with Florida panthers. Is there some little thing we can do?
Yeah, I actually include in the book a table of all the different things you can do. But I think the biggest things are one, helping to protect the areas that are already protected and encouraging us to connect those areas so that we have a corridor all across the state that connects those patches of habitat so that our wildlife can move freely all across the state. And that's important, and maintaining it, not just buying it, but maintaining it, because we have a lot of non-native plants here that would encroach. The other thing, and I think this is maybe even more important, is putting native plants in your lands, because a lot of our upland habitats, like those pine rocklands I was talking about, those are in private hands. And so if we plant native plants on those lands, it's essentially recreating habitat that has been lost. And so if each of us did that, even just in a little piece of our yard, we could connect those habitats as well that way.
So there are things we can do.
Absolutely.
I don't know about climate change. Are things shifting? Is the landscape changing, and can you see it?
Yeah. And actually there's a lot of these animals that are displaying that. Roseate spoonbills, for example, historically 90% of their nests were in Florida Bay. And over the years they've started not nesting there. The nests were failing, the chicks were dying, people were worried that their population was going to decline. But in fact what they did was they shifted to new areas. And so now there's not so many of them in Florida Bay, but you can find them in St. Augustine and Tampa Bay, and they're moving to other places in response to climate change and the effects of sea level rise.
You tell those people who see in their own residential communities the ones they would call invasive, the iguanas, coyotes, even a fox sometimes. Do we need more education?
Well, we definitely need more education, because part of it is people have a hard time distinguishing what are the things that should be here versus the things that are not supposed to be here. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's an animal, either we should get rid of it because it's an animal, or we should love it because it's an animal. But if you're looking at it from a conservation perspective, there's nuances there. And some non-native species are not a problem. Some, like the python, are a huge problem. And fox, for example, the gray fox is native to South Florida, and they too need habitat. And they can actually remarkably live well with people. I have them living in my neighborhood, and half the time you never even see them. They're secretive. And so learning to live with wildlife and educate ourselves as to what is good and what isn't good, and should we be fighting for every single tree? No, there's some trees that would be better off getting rid of them and replacing them with native trees that would have more ecological benefits.
Kirsten, what is the most difficult situation or dangerous situation that you were ever in when you were trying to get a photo?
Honestly, the most dangerous situations were for humans, frankly. Okay. But I assume that's not what you were asking about. I think I was trying very hard to take pictures of bears, and I ended up taking those pictures in people's yards, and they were very tolerant of people, and so I thought that they wouldn't be intimidated by people, and so I was sitting outside not too far from a mother bear with her cubs. And she warned me. She let me know that she didn't want me there.
It is a great picture. I'll give you that. And I'm sure she did warn you.
Yeah. So that was probably the most actual threat, because she was protecting her young, and she was very kind about it. She kind of barked at me and lunged at me a little bit, and as soon as I was like, okay, I'll leave, we were good. But that was probably the closest it got from a wildlife perspective.
I don't know if you were using a zoom, but it looked pretty close to me.
It was both. There was a zoom, but it was probably closer than I should have been.
Is there any Florida species, or even a location perhaps, that you haven't written about or photographed that you really want to?
I'm always willing to say that there's somewhere I haven't seen, and places I would love to explore more. But I felt like I did a really good job of covering it. I ended up spending, essentially 3 years hiking and camping and driving all over and really, really exploring the state in a way that I hadn't before this project. So yes, I'm sure there's other places that I just haven't gotten to yet, but I feel like I very much covered it.
I think you covered it in this book, and I know that your work in the field is solitary, but if you ever need a sidekick, I'm your person.
Okay, I will take you up on that. Watch out what you offer.
Okay. The new book is Wild Florida, an Animal Odyssey. Kirsten Hines, this has been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a delight.
I'm Anne Bocock. Please join me on the next Between the Covers.